What's going on YouTube? Listen up, young elder gang. This is Vince O'Connor at You With Another Banger. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video, fam. I hope this video get at least 100,000 likes. In this video, you will find history, definitions, scripture, information, and best of all, what we Americans have been deprived of from the beginning, the truth. Keep in mind, this content used in this video is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. We will give you the total truth as we best understand it today. Be sure to hit that like button, young elder gang. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Hit that bell and don't forget to check back with us every day for new content. In the Mohave War, which primarily took place in 1859, the Mohave Native American tribe fought against the U.S. military, ultimately losing a decisive battle against a small force of American soldiers near the Colorado River, leading to their surrender and the establishment of Fort Mohave to maintain control over the area. The battle effectively ended hostilities between the Mohave and the U.S. government, with Chief Espanol leading the tribe in seeking peace after the defeat. Key points about the Mohave War. Major battle. The only significant battle occurred in August 1859 when a small force of 50 American soldiers under Captain Armstead and Lieutenant Marshall defeated over 200 Mohave warriors. Location. The battle took place along the Colorado River, approximately 12 miles south of Fort Mohave. Outcome. The Mohave were decisively defeated, suffering heavy casualties, while the American forces sustained only minor injuries. Aftermath. Following the battle, Chief Espanol negotiated peace with the U.S. military, effectively ending the war. Fort Mohave. The U.S. established Fort Mohave on the Colorado River to maintain control over the area and protect the overland route. Captain Armstead and First Lieutenant Elisha Marshall led 50 men in an attack on over 200 Mojaves 12 miles south of the fort along the Colorado River. The natives were routed, leaving 23 warriors on the field, while only 3 Americans were wounded. The Paiute War, also known as the Pyramid Lake War, saw northern Paiute Native Americans fight against encroaching white settlers in the area around Pyramid Lake, Nevada in 1860. Primarily due to the disruption of their traditional way of life by miners and settlers exploiting the nearby Comstock lode, the Paiutes achieved a significant initial victory by ambushing a volunteer army from Virginia City, but ultimately faced defeat against larger military forces, leading to continued skirmishes and eventual displacement to reservations. Key points about the Paiute War. Cause: the influx of miners and settlers into the area around Pyramid Lake significantly impacted the Paiutes' access to food sources like fish and pine nuts, leading to tensions and conflict. Major battle. The First Battle of Pyramid Lake on May 12, 1860, where Paiute warriors successfully ambushed a volunteer army from Virginia City, inflicting heavy casualties. Outcome. Despite the initial victory, the Paiutes were eventually overwhelmed by larger U.S. military forces, leading to their retreat and displacement to reservations. Impact on the Pony Express. The conflict significantly disrupted the Pony Express operations in the region, causing delays in mail delivery. The Yavapai Wars involved a series of conflicts between the Yavapai Native American tribe and the U.S. Army, culminating in a brutal massacre known as the Skeleton Cave Massacre, where soldiers surrounded and killed a large number of Yavapai men, women, and children who were hiding in a cave, refusing to surrender. This event is considered a significant turning point in the Yavapai Wars, leading to the forced removal of the Yavapai people to reservations, with many deaths occurring during the relocation process. Key points about the Yavapai Wars. The Skeleton Cave Massacre. This event, which took place on December 28, 1872, saw U.S. soldiers surround a cave where Yavapai people were seeking refuge and open fire, killing a large number of them. Forced relocation. Following the conflicts, the Yavapai were forcibly removed from their traditional lands and relocated to the San Carlos Reservation, a journey known as the March of Tears, where many died due to harsh conditions. Reasons for conflict. The primary cause of the Yavapai Wars was the expansion of white settlement into Yavapai territory, leading to disputes over land and resources. Impact on the Yavapai. The Yavapai population suffered significantly due to the wars, with many killed and their way of life disrupted. The Owens Valley Indian War, fought between 1862 and 1863, saw escalating conflict between the Native American Paiute tribe and white settlers in the Owens Valley of California, primarily due to growing tensions over dwindling resources like grazing land. leading to violent clashes where settlers, backed by U.S. troops, attacked Paiute camps, resulting in a large number of Native American casualties and their forced removal from the area. The war is considered a tragic chapter in California's history, marked by significant loss of life for the Paiute people. Key points about the Owens Valley Indian War. Causes. The primary cause was the rapid influx of white settlers and their livestock into the Owens Valley, which depleted the available food sources for the Paiute tribe. Tensions escalated when Paiutes were forced to kill cattle from settler herds to survive harsh winters. Major events, raids and attacks. Settlers, often backed by local militia, raided Paiute camps, killing Native Americans and destroying their food supplies. Battle of Owens Lake. One significant battle occurred near Owens Lake, where a large number of Paiutes were killed by combined forces of settlers and soldiers. Forced removal. Following the violence, the remaining Paiute population was forcibly removed from the Owens Valley and relocated to reservations. Impact. This conflict resulted in a devastating loss of life for the Paiute people, significantly reducing their population in the region and leading to the disruption of their traditional way of life. In the Dakota War of 1862, the decisive battle was the Battle of Wood Lake on September 23rd, where the U.S. forces led by Colonel Henry Sibley defeated the Dakota warriors, effectively ending the war and forcing most Dakota to surrender. This was followed by the mass execution of 38 Dakota men in Mankato, Minnesota on December 26, 1862, marking the largest mass hanging in U.S. history. Key points about the battle. Date: September 23, 1862. Location: Wood Lake, Minnesota. Outcome: U.S. forces decisively defeated the Dakota. Aftermath: following the battle, most Dakota surrendered, were held at Camp Release, and many were later forced to leave Minnesota. The Goshute War refers to a conflict between the Goshute Native American tribe and white settlers in the Utah Territory during the 1860s, primarily due to the settlers encroaching on Goshute land and disrupting their traditional way of life. The Goshutes retaliated with raids on stagecoach stations, leading to military intervention by the U.S. government, which ultimately forced the Goshutes to sign a treaty in 1863, allowing passage through their land while not surrendering their territory, although they did agree to cease hostile actions against the settlers. This treaty did not fully resolve tensions, with further attempts to relocate the Goshutes to reservations occurring later in the century. Key points about the Goshute War. Cause: the construction of the Pony Express and overland stagecoach routes through Goshute territory, causing disruption to their hunting grounds and leading to conflicts with settlers. Goshute actions, raids on stage stations, stealing supplies, and occasionally killing settlers. Military response. The U.S. Army, led by Brigadier General Patrick E. Connor, launched attacks against the Goshutes. Treaty of 1863. The Goshutes were forced to sign a treaty allowing passage through their land in exchange for ending hostilities. Aftermath. Despite the treaty, tensions remained high and the U.S. government continued to attempt to relocate the Goshutes to reservations, ultimately establishing the Skull Valley Reservation in Utah. The Colorado War was a conflict between the U.S. and a coalition of Plains Indians that lasted from 1863 to 1865. The war was a result of the gold rush and the influx of white settlers into Colorado and Wyoming. The war ended in December 1865, with most of the Southern Cheyenne and Arapaho returning to the Great Plains. Here are some key events from the Colorado War. Sand Creek Massacre. In November 1864, more than 150 Arapaho and Cheyenne women and children were massacred. Battle of Julesburg. On January 7, 1865, the U.S. Army and civilians fought against 1,000 Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Lakota Indians. The Indians won the battle and went on to raid ranches and stagecoach stations. Little Arkansas Treaty. In October 1865, Black Kettle signed the Little Arkansas Treaty, which required his band of Southern Cheyenne to move to Indian Territory. Other conflicts in Colorado include Colorado Coalfield War, a labor uprising that took place from 1913 to 1914. The strike was organized by the United Mine Workers of America against the Rockefeller-owned Colorado Fuel and Iron. Lake County War, a conflict from 1874 to 1875 that was caused by a dispute over land and water rights. 1863-65. The influx of white settlers during the gold rush brings about the Colorado War, in which a broad alliance of Plains Indians fights U.S. encroachment in Colorado and Wyoming. Among the casualties are more than 150 Arapaho and Cheyenne women and children who are massacred in 1864 at Sand Creek. The Snake War, which took place from 1864-1868, was a series of events that included a volunteer company getting trapped on Boulder Creek, a successful campaign in eastern Oregon, and peace talks between George Crook and Snake Chief Waiawewa. Boulder Creek. In July 1864, a volunteer company organized by Oahe merchants and miners was trapped on Boulder Creek and held off a 6-day siege. The Indians disappeared before help arrived. Eastern Oregon. In July 1864, Lieutenant Reuben F. Bernard led a successful campaign in eastern Oregon, killing at least a dozen Indians and destroying the supplies of 300 more. Peace talks. The war ended after peace talks between George Crook and Snake Chief Waiawewa. The Snake War was the deadliest Indian war in the West in terms of casualties, with 1,762 men killed, wounded, or captured on both sides. However, it is often forgotten in U.S. history because of a number of factors, including the Paiute and Western Shoshone were not well known as warriors. Few reporters covered the war. The nation was focused on the American Civil War and its aftermath. The Hualapai War, which took place between 1865 and 1870, saw the Hualapai Native American tribe fight against encroaching white settlers, primarily due to conflicts over land access and the construction of the Santa Fe Railroad, ultimately resulting in the Hualapai being forced to surrender to U.S. troops after disease significantly weakened their ranks. Notable Hualapai leader Sharum played a key role in the resistance before eventually surrendering, marking the end of the war. Key points about the Hualapai War. Cause: increased white settlement and the construction of the Santa Fe Railroad led to growing tensions over Hualapai land. Triggering event: the killing of Hualapai leader Wauba Yuma while on a peace mission to negotiate with settlers. Hualapai resistance, led by warriors like Sharum, the Hualapai fought back against the encroaching settlers through raids and skirmishes. Disease factor: eventually, disease like whooping cough and dysentery significantly weakened the Hualapai population, forcing them to surrender. Outcome: the Hualapai were defeated and were eventually forced onto a reservation. In the Battle of Black Hawk's War, which primarily took place at the Battle of Wisconsin Heights, Sauk leader Black Hawk and his warriors were decisively defeated by a much larger U.S. militia force, forcing them to retreat across the Mississippi River, ultimately leading to Black Hawk's surrender and the end of the conflict. The battle was a lopsided victory for the militia, with minimal American casualties and significant losses for the Native American side, marking a major setback for Black Hawk's resistance against white settlement on their land. Key points about the Battle of Black Hawk's War. Leaders: Black Hawk, a Sauk leader, led the Native American forces against the U.S. militia. Location: the main battle occurred near the Wisconsin River, specifically at a place called Wisconsin Heights. Outcome: Black Hawk's forces were heavily outnumbered and suffered significant casualties, forcing them to retreat across the Mississippi River. Aftermath: following the battle, Black Hawk and his remaining followers surrendered, leading to their removal from their land and relocation to a reservation in Iowa. Black Hawk was desperately outnumbered, leading about 50 Sauks and 60 to 70 Kickapoos against 750 militiamen. The battle was a lopsided victory for the militiamen, who lost only one man while killing as many as 68 of Black Hawk's warriors. The Battle of Powder River, also called the Reynolds Battle, was a significant engagement during the Great Sioux War of 1876, where Colonel Joseph J. Reynolds led a surprise attack on a northern Cheyenne and Oglala Lakota Indian camp along the Powder River in Montana Territory, marking the start of the war by solidifying Native American resistance to forced reservation relocation. Despite destroying much Indian property, the poorly executed attack ultimately failed to subdue the tribes and only strengthened their resolve against the U.S. government's attempts to take the Black Hills. Key points about the Battle of Powder River. Date: March 17, 1876. Combatants: U.S. Army troops under Colonel Joseph J. Reynolds against a combined force of Northern Cheyenne and Oglala Lakota Indians. Outcome: although the soldiers destroyed a large amount of Indian property, the attack was poorly managed and resulted in a significant backlash from the Native American tribes, fueling further resistance. Although soldiers destroyed one Arapaho village and established Fort Connor to protect gold miners on the Bozeman Trail, The expedition is considered a failure because it failed to defeat or intimidate the Indians. The Powder River in southeastern Montana, where Cole's and Walker's columns passed in 1865. In Red Cloud's War, a conflict between the Dakota Sioux led by Chief Red Cloud and the U.S. government, the Native Americans ultimately achieved victory, forcing the U.S. to abandon forts and close the Bozeman Trail through a peace treaty known as the Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1868, effectively granting the Lakota control over the Powder River country. This marked a significant Native American triumph against the U.S. military. Key points about Red Cloud's War. Cause: the conflict arose due to the construction of forts and the Bozeman Trail through Lakota territory, which they considered sacred hunting grounds. Notable battles. The war included several key battles, most notably the Fetterman Massacre, where a large number of U.S. soldiers were killed. Outcome: after sustained resistance from Red Cloud and his warriors, the U.S. government was forced to negotiate, leading to the signing of the Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1868, which effectively ended the war and granted the Lakota access to a large reservation. With peace achieved under the Treaty of Fort Laramie in 1868, the Lakota and their allies were victorious. They gained legal control of the western Powder River country, took down the forts, and permanently closed the Bozeman Trail. The Crow lost their hunting grounds in the Powder River region to their enemies. The Comanche Campaign, also known as the Red River War, resulted in the defeat of the Comanche tribe by the U.S. Army, forcing them to surrender and move on to reservations, with the final surrender occurring in June 1875 at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, marking the end of their nomadic lifestyle on the plains. This was largely due to aggressive military tactics employed by the Army, which decimated their way of life and access to resources like buffalo herds. Key points about the Comanche Campaign. Leaders. Prominent Comanche leader during this period was Quanah Parker. Military tactics. The U.S. Army used tactics like destroying Comanche winter camps, hunting down their horses, and relentless pursuit to wear them down. Impact on Comanche life. The campaign led to the loss of their traditional way of life, forcing them to settle on reservations and rely on government support. The Modoc War, which took place between 1872 and 1873, saw the Modoc tribe, led by Captain Jack Pt.5, fiercely resist forced relocation onto a reservation by the U.S. Army, utilizing the rugged lava beds of northeastern California as their stronghold. After months of battles, the Modocs were eventually forced to surrender, with Captain Jack and several other leaders being captured and later executed for the murder of a peace commissioner, General Edward Canby, during a peace meeting. The remaining Modoc were forcibly relocated to Indian Territory, present-day Oklahoma. Key points about the Modoc War. Location. The primary battleground was the lava beds region in northeastern California, where the Modocs used the volcanic terrain to their advantage. Leader of the Modocs, Captain Jack Pt.5. Turning point. The killing of General Edward Canby during a peace negotiation led to a major escalation and ultimately the capture of the Modoc leaders. Outcome: the Modocs were defeated, with most being relocated to Indian Territory, Oklahoma. The Red River War, which took place between 1874 and 1875, was a conflict where various Southern Plains tribes, primarily Comanches, Kiowas, and Cheyennes, fought against the U.S. Army due to the rapid expansion of white settlement and the decimation of the bison population, ultimately resulting in the tribes being forced onto reservations after a series of battles and skirmishes across the Texas Panhandle, with the most significant event being the Battle of Palo Duro Canyon, where the U.S. Army decisively defeated the Native American forces, effectively ending their resistance and forcing them to surrender, marking the end of their free-roaming lifestyle on the plains. Key points about the Red River War. Triggering event. The war began with an attack on a buffalo hunter camp at Adobe Walls led by Comanche Chief Quanah Parker and a spiritual leader named Issa Tai. Major battles. Several significant battles occurred, including the Battle of Palo Duro Canyon, where Colonel Ranald S. Mackenzie and his troops destroyed Native American villages and captured large numbers of horses, forcing the tribes to surrender due to lack of supplies. Outcome: the U.S. Army ultimately prevailed, forcing the Native American tribes to surrender and relocate to reservations, marking a significant turning point in the American westward expansion. The Red River War officially ended in June 1875, when Quanah Parker and his band of Quahati Comanche entered Fort Sill and surrendered. the Indians were defeated and would never again freely roam the Buffalo Plains. During the Great Sioux War of 1876, the most significant battle was the Battle of Little Bighorn, where a large Native American force led by Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull decisively defeated Lieutenant Colonel George Custer and his 7th Cavalry Regiment, resulting in the death of Custer and nearly all his men, marking a major Native American victory against the U.S. Army. This event further fueled tensions and led to increased efforts to force Native Americans onto reservations. Key points about the Battle of Little Bighorn. Date, June 25, 1876. Location, Little Bighorn River, Montana. Outcome, a decisive Native American victory. Key figures, Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull, Native American leaders, George Custer, U.S. Army leader. The Battle of Pecos War refers to the Battle of Glorieta Pass, which was a pivotal Civil War engagement fought in New Mexico Territory near Pecos, where Union forces decisively defeated Confederate troops, effectively halting their attempt to gain control of the West by securing crucial supplies at Fort Union. This battle is considered a major turning point in the Confederate campaign in the region, ending their plans to invade Colorado and California. Key points about the Battle of Glorieta Pass. Location. The battle primarily took place around Glorieta Pass, a narrow canyon near Pecos, New Mexico. Combatants, Confederate forces under General Henry Hopkins Sibley, clashed with Union troops commanded by Colonel John P. Slough. Outcome: the Union achieved a decisive victory, destroying Confederate supplies and forcing them to retreat back to Texas. Significance: this battle effectively ended the Confederate threat in New Mexico and secured the region for the Union. The Buffalo Hunters War refers to a conflict between Comanche Native Americans and buffalo hunters in Texas during 1877, where the Comanches raided a group of hunters, leading to a retaliatory attack by the hunters, resulting in a series of skirmishes across the Llano Estacado, Staked Plains region. A key event was a battle in Yellowhouse Canyon, now part of present-day Lubbock, Texas, on March 18, 1877, where the hunters attempted to attack the Comanche camp, but were ultimately repelled. Key points about the Buffalo Hunters War. Cause: the Comanches, frustrated by the decimation of the buffalo population due to hunting by white settlers, attacked a group of buffalo hunters, stealing their livestock and wounding several men. Major battle site: the battle in Yellowhouse Canyon, where a group of buffalo hunters led by Hank Campbell, Jim Smith, and Joe Freed engaged with a Comanche force. Outcome: the Comanches were able to escape the battle, although the hunters did inflict some casualties. Impact: this conflict further strained relations between Native Americans and white settlers in Texas, contributing to the ongoing tensions of the Indian Wars.